Being a full-time single working mother gave me the biggest breakdown I've ever had. And I've had my fair share. But this was something else. And I can go into the actual breakdown, but let me tell you about some of the intrusive thoughts that I had. I was an apprentice, so 2 days a week I'd be at college and 3 days a week I'd be at a job. I've just turned 18, my daughter is 6 months old. My daughter was still doing the waking up in the middle of the night thing, nappy changed for feeding, whatever it was. So I'd be up half the night with her, go to work the next day or go to college the next day, and it killed me. It was exhausting. I didn't want to do it, because I felt like I was abandoning her. But if you know my story, you'll know that social services, I grew up in care, and social services were like, if you want to be a good mum, you have to do it. Prove that you love your child by going to work. My breakdown got so bad, I ended up developing agoraphobia. I didn't leave the house for a year. But some of the intrusive thoughts that would be in my head, so there were times, I'm going to sound crazy now. There were times, so say if I was like falling asleep, so my daughter's asleep, I'm in bed, I'm falling asleep, I would suddenly think, what if there's a fire? What if there's a fire in my house and what if it's right by the front door? Because we lived in this flat, so our old flat, it was in a building that was only 3 stories high, so it wasn't tall at all, but we were on the top floor. And you know, like windows, some windows, like this was a new build. I was the first person that ever lived in that flat, and in new builds, they sometimes put bars across the window, prevention type bars. So there were these bars across the window, so you couldn't really jump out the window if you needed to. And we also had like this big roof terrace, this huge balcony, it was massive. But my paranoia, I don't know if it was like an OCD thing, I just had these obsessive thoughts. I think it was stress, lack of sleep, all of that. And I used to think, what if there's a fire by the front door? How are me and my daughter going to get out? What if the fire alarm doesn't work? So I would get up in the middle of the night. It'd be like 1 a.m. Couldn't get the thought out of my head, and I'd feel like I have to check the fire alarm. I have to make sure this fire alarm works. I would then turn on the fire alarm to make it go off, and then once it went off and I knew it was working, I'd turn it off, get back into bed, and then I'd think, well, what if it's just died now? Obviously it didn't. Like, obviously if a fire alarm is dying, it does that whole like beeps every like 30 seconds or whatever, but I didn't care. I was convinced, no, the fire alarm isn't working. I would get up probably 5 times a night to check the fire alarm was working. I ended up swapping mine and my daughter's bedrooms around. My daughter was initially in the bedroom closest to the front door because it was the smallest bedroom. I swapped our bedrooms around just in case. I thought if there's a fire, I need to be close to it so that I can smell it and like deal with it. Once I finally got over the fire thoughts, then came the sleepwalking thoughts. I would be in bed. I have never sleepwalked in my life. I would lie in bed thinking, what if I fall asleep and start sleepwalking? What if I climb out the window? What if I jump off the balcony? I had no reason to think I was going to sleepwalk, but then I wouldn't want to sleep. Because I'd think if I fall asleep, I'm going to sleepwalk. So then I'd be awake all night, but then I'd also be awake all day. I was killing myself. I can't even explain. It was the worst year of my life. It went on for a year. I was getting 3 or 4 panic attacks a day. Like I said, I ended up getting agoraphobia. So I had to do my college work from home. I couldn't do the job side of it anymore. I could only do like the coursework side of it. And how I got over it, and I hate how I got over it. So that was 2013. The year 2013, 10 years ago, worst year of my life. And not because of my daughter was the only thing that kept me going. It was everything else. Because I was still getting shit from social services. My daughter was the only thing that kept me going. If I didn't have my daughter, I would not be here right now because that year of my life. It's the type of year that you would say you wouldn't wish upon your worst enemies, although I would. Because if you're my enemy, I hate you and like, I hate you. But how I managed to get over that is my little sister, I've spoken about it before, my little sister was hit by a car. New Year's Day 2014. That pulled me out of that kind of anxiety. Because when your sister's dying, because we were told she would die, when your sister's dying, suddenly everything else seems insignificant. I hate that feeling of that weird, like, I don't have gratitude that my sister was hit by a car, but I wonder if she hadn't have been, how long would my anxiety continued? Because I still get anxiety every now and then, but not to that extent. Not to that, like, paranoid thoughts extent. And like I said, I think part of it was lack of sleep. Lack of sleep will drive you crazy.